Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I'm Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
And
today,
I'm Trish.
I've totally cut you off, Trish.
You forgot I existed.
To be fair,
I'm fading away.
Half of these that I record only have two people in them. But yes, Trish is here too. I didn't kill Trish this week. And today we'll be covering the 9th part of Wild Arms V, the Vth Vanguard, and we'll be covering up through completing all 4 TF towers. But before we get to all of that, how was everyone's week?
I set up Chiaki on my Steam Deck, which it turns out is not very hard, and now I can play Final Fantasy VII Remake in bed while which I mean I could have done if I'd just bought the Steam version, but I didn't want to. Now I can play it in bed as I replay it as I prepare for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is going to be the best video game ever made.
I hope so. The first one was pretty darn close, so I would hate for them to drop the ball.
I have seen carefully cut trailers which make me think it's going to be the best video game ever made. And why would a trailer ever make a video game look better than it actually ends up being? That would be dishonest.
And you can't just go on the internet and tell lies.
No.
I, as the deafly eared listener may be able to tell, I have been fighting a cold all week, and it sucks. Scarlett was sick last Sunday, I think. She got sick. She got the cold, and we quarantined her in her room. Didn't let her come out. We thought it was fine, but it wasn't fine. All we did was make it where we got sick 3 days after Scarlett did. So now Scarlett feels better and is wondering why everybody in the house is miserable. And it's like, stop.
Do you not remember?
Do you not remember what this was like? Do you not remember throwing up like 4 times? But yeah. As of yesterday, I've had a new weird symptom where every time I sneeze and about every other time I cough, my arms go numb and my chest and neck hurts real bad. And apparently that's probably a back problem. And I've already contacted my doctor, and we're going to see what's up with that. But it's very, very weird. Because you sneeze a lot when you're sick. And it shouldn't hurt when that happens. But other than being sick, I finally started playing Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, and it's really good. It feels like more Jet Set Radio Future, except the level design isn't as immaculate as Jet Set Radio Futures is, because this isn't a Sega game, and Sega's really good at level design. And it's so much fun to go around and do things in it, but there are way too many just like big flat open places, which is not what I want to be doing in a Jet Set Radio. But Jet Set skateboarding and Jet Set BMXing is really fucking fun, and I highly recommend. But yeah, that's all I've done this week, because that's all I've been able to do this week.
For me, something reminded me of Stardew Valley, and so I did that thing I do every so often where I reinstall Stardew Valley and I mod the hell out of it. I'm not going to say it's a good way to spend my time. It's been eating up hours horribly that could have been spent doing other things.
It's a fantastic way to spend your time.
It is very fun. And I've got some really fun mods this time that I haven't played with before. So I've been doing that. I've been reading more Gideon the Ninth. And just yesterday, a friend showed me a film from last year that I missed, that I didn't end up seeing. I have now seen the Barbie movie, which apparently there is discourse about it. I'm going to try and avoid the discourse as much as possible. So all I'll say is it was a really good movie. I had a couple qualms with it, but like, it was really good. And it was also just like so gay. Like, it was really gay. but yeah, that was a really fun time. And me and that same friend continued further into Words of Radiance. We're going through the second. I'm showing this person the Stormlight Archive right now, and we're deep into the middle. And I do really love how sometimes showing another person a piece of art you love can ignite more affection for parts of it that you didn't care for yourself.
Hmm.
Like I usually, when I was thinking about it, I would always say Words of Radiance is kind of like my least favorite of the series, or definitely below the first one at least. And they're really changing my opinion on that and pointing me towards places where, like, yeah, no, there's some really great stuff in this book.
Nice.
And I like getting a newfound appreciation for parts of one of my favorite series that I'm not normally as big a fan of.
Speaking of series that I'm a giant fan of, uh, you you're reading Gideon the Ninth physically, correct?
That is correct. I just finished Act 1.
Okay. Um, Gideon the Ninth is my favorite audiobook of all time, specifically an audiobook.
Oh?
And there is a thing that you can do in audiobook that you can't really do on the printed page. So there will be something that hits harder in the second book. If you like, it works better as an audiobook in the second book than it does than reading it does. And uh if you are an audiobook listener, I recommend checking it out in audiobook because the performance by Moira Quirk is fantastic. It's really really
Ooh.
good. But then the aforementioned thing she does in the second book that I don't want to spoil, but it's so good, very very good, and I highly
Oh.
recommend you check it out that way. Preferably your first time through it if you are able to. If not, it's okay. Okay, but going back and rereading it in audiobook is also pretty good. But yeah, that one that one is the one that I might like point people towards the audiobook over the physical book for.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I'm definitely intrigued. I would just say from where I am in the book currently, because I'm not that far.
Mhm.
It's the kind of book I chip away at a couple chapters every day or two. One thing I'm really liking is at first it's easy to look at the humor because the humor throughout the series is very, or at least where I am in the series, I should say, is very in your face and obvious and very modern in a
Mhm.
way that I think, and very, I don't know, like modern internet humor almost in a way, in a way that
Mhm.
kind of like is hard to ignore.
Do you
But
want to
when
know a
you get,
secret?
what is it? Does it
It's
change every book?
no.
Okay, good.
It's Homestuck fan fiction.
Oh, I'm not. Well, here's the thing: is I don't like Homestuck, but it does make sense. So here's the thing: is though when you get past the, oh, this is silly and funny, like you start digging into the world building, and the world building is just really fun because of that silly sense of humor. You end up with this thing of like, okay, there's space travel and there's spaceships. This is intergalactic empire or something. You've then got the element of like there's necromancy, there's magic, there's fantasy stuff going on, and then you have just like Gideon wears mirrored sunglasses, and
Yep.
she has dirty magazines, and like there's a mix of fantasy, science fiction, and modernism.
Hmm.
Not modernism, but like a modern sensibility, a modern humor. All of it
Hmm.
blended together into a really weird, fascinating world that I would love to see visually. Like
Hmm.
I would kill for like an animated series of this or something, like an
Hmm.
animated adaptation. Like that would look stellar in pun intended.
Hmm. Also, good news. All of the pages at the beginning then said this is part one of the Locked Tomb trilogy. The trilogy now has 4 books.
Oh,
So
that's lovely. I
yeah,
love when that happens.
yeah. To the Hitchhiker's Guide, uh I love
Yes,
period. But on the front of book
yes.
5, it says the 5th book in the increasingly inaccurately named Hitchhiker's trilogy, which is definitely what's going on here. But yeah, if you have the bandwidth to switch to the audiobook, I highly, 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 highly recommend it.
I don't think I do, but I think I want to finish it physical copy, but I do want to go to check out the audiobook now that you've told me about it.
Yeah, at least check out the like a if you, on like Overdrive or whatever, like get the sample so you can just hear the performance in the
Okay.
sample. At the very least, I think it will be helpful to have it in your brain. But
I'm very curious to hear like this audiobook narrator's like Gideon voice, and especially her Harrowhark voice, because Harrowhark
yeah,
is such a like very particular kind of character, and I feel like there's a lot of ways you could read her.
hmm
And I'm very curious to see what she goes with.
yeah. But yeah, shout outs to Moira Quirk. She's, as far as I know, hasn't done a whole bunch before this book, and she knocked it out of the park. It's the best one I've ever listened to. But speaking of the best things that I've ever listened to, let's listen to my notes for this next section of Wild Arms 5. So when we last left our heroes, they had traveled through Avril's Mind Palace, defeated her shadow, and now she can cast a persona, and she has all of her memories back. Turns out she's 12,000 years old and is the Ice Queen of Legend and the rightful ruler of the Runi, and she also gave us the keys to her giant robot. So now we get to be really cool mech pilots and fly through the air on a giant robot and kick ass, and no, it's suck ass. It's really suck ass.
Yeah.
On the overworld, you can't steer for shit, and in battle, you can't steer at all. The robot
You can't.
it automatically fights in battle, and you don't even get to set up gambits. You just get to turn skills on and off. It's boring. It's
And
absolutely boring.
You don't get experience for those fights even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh well, you could just hover, and then you don't get the random battles. And it's like, okay, then why is this in the game?
Yeah, and if you hover, for some reason, while hovering, you have tank controls. I've never had tank controls in the sky before. It's so bad. Nothing else in this game has tank controls, but the flying machine does. It's so bizarre. I hate it. The mono wheel is 20 times cooler. And then also because the robot has a big old punch on the square button, you can't search while you're in it. So it's not even a fun way to go places. I literally rode the mono wheel up to a boulder, got out, got an Asgard, punched it, got back in the mono wheel, and drove the rest of the way. It's so stupid. I hate it.
That's what I did.
So the team heads over to the Pilgrim's Cradle, which is where Captain Bartholomew asked us to go and check something out at the end of last week. When we get there, Avril is sorting through her memories and trying to figure out what's real, what's propaganda. Because when she woke up, she got a lot of info from the radicals, but now she has all of her old memories and she's trying to piece it all together. The team says that they trust her to figure it all out, and Avril says, well, I'll figure it out, but don't hesitate to ask me if there's anything that you want to know. Dean is like, cool, there is one thing I wanted to know. If this place is a place for healing the sick and cryostasis and shit, why is this a dungeon and why have we been fighting monsters? And Avril was like, I think that's what Captain Bartholomew wanted you to see, so let's go see it for ourselves. Chuck also has a question. He says, if the Varuni are getting sick because of Filgaia, why don't they just find another planet to live on? Avril says that Class M planets are rare, and in all 12,000 years, they only found one that would support their life. But that planet was also dying, and it only bought them about 5,000 years.
Okay,
So,
wait. I just want to double check, because I might have missed this. Does she say that planet was dying? Because I thought all she said was they used all of its resources in 5,000 years.
yeah, but they were on Filgaia for a lot longer than that, so I would think that it either was really small or they got worse when they left
See,
Filgaia.
I thought it was just a sign that they were rampant consumerists destroying their planet under their own feet, and that it is actually unsustainable for them to live literally anywhere with the way they live. And that I didn't see that as a sign that planet was dying. I saw that meant these motherfuckers are going to destroy any planet they live on.
That's very,
Gesture at
very
the two
valid.
planets they have killed.
Yeah, that's a very valid read of it. Yeah, but since they only spent 5,000 years on that planet, that means the other 7,000 years that they were gone, they were just wandering through space and didn't have a home anywhere. And so most of the time they thought of Filgaia as their home. And she then says, besides, there's another reason why the Varuni are unable to return to space. Chuck says, elaborate on that. Avril says, no. So this was actually like 4 or 5 walk and talk conversations stitched together that happened while going through the dungeon. The dungeon itself revolves around using our new arm part, which is a hook shot. We can pull things, pull ourselves, hang from glowy balls to Bioshock Infinite over gaps. It's pretty cool. What's annoying, though, is all of the puzzles that aren't about the hook shot involve leaving certain party members on certain switches inside of a maze in order to unlock the final door of that maze. However, everyone has stupid little logic rules that you have to follow. Carol always has to stay in the first room because the first room is a computer and she's the only smart person. Then some of the rooms have the lights off and several of the characters are afraid of the dark, so you can't leave them in that room by themselves. And most annoyingly, Rebecca won't stay behind if Avril is in the party still because of her jealousy. And Avril always has to stand on the final switch. So the main puzzle here is finding a way to ditch Rebecca, go back and pick Avril up to put her on the final switch. As a logic puzzle, it's pretty cool. As a storytelling device, it's really fucking annoying that Rebecca's jealousy is what this whole puzzle relies on. It's stupid. I hate it. I hope there's some big lesbian awakening happening at the end of this episode today, because I'm tired of this. There's also a mid-boss that is made up of 3 smaller bosses, and if all the bosses are in the same hex, it combines into a big ol' ammonite that's completely immune to damage. So you either have to wait for them to separate, or have someone with the that medium equipped that gets the party hex manipulation skills, which none of my characters did. I had someone doubled up on soldier to fight. So not soldier. What is it? That's Final Fantasy 13, whatever. But yeah, the fighting one, the sword medium. That's the one. I had two of those, so I didn't have anybody with the hex manipulation. So I just spent about 20 minutes guarding and waiting. And because I was guarding, he wasn't killing me, so I couldn't even like reload my save or anything. It just took forever. It was annoying. At the end of the dungeon, we run into the professor. He recognizes us as the people who stole the Mirror of DeSoto from him, and we're like, hi. Chuck is like, hey, you almost got me killed. And the professor is like, watch your tone when you talk to Elvis, the foremost of all Filgaia historians, and the 4th and final sentinel. I stole that mirror fair and square. You guys just ruined my research. Carol is like, Professor, how many times do I have to tell you to stop stealing? And he's like, I'm sorry. Carol asks if he was able to complete his research, and he says that the mirror was actually just a ceremonial device and wasn't magic at all. And Dean is like, quick question, why are you on a Varuni ship? And everyone's like, dude, he's obviously been a Varuni the whole time. Like, there's nothing about this man that seems human. He's like 15 feet tall, giant muscles, like doing a bunch of technology shit that humans don't do. Like, where did you think this guy was a human? The professor asks us what we're doing here, and we tell him that we've been sent by Captain Bartholomew, and he's like, oh, so you must be the ones that he's chosen as representatives of humanity. Come with me, I want to show you something. So he takes us into the main stasis facility, but none of the pods are working. All of them are just filled with the mummified remains of the ancient Varuni. The professor says that when the Locus Solus left Filgaia, the disease from Filgaia didn't affect everyone the same. Some got sick when they were young, others got sick when they were super old. So this facility is where they put the people who were sick into stasis while they were looking for a cure. But because they were Varuni. They threw caution to the wind and pushed harder and faster than they should have, and they made a mistake that caused an accident, which let some experimental microbes escape into this place, which genetically modified the fauna into terrible monsters. So instead of having animals on their spaceship, they now have a shitload of monsters on their spaceship. The professor says that there are other cradles that are all still functioning normally, but the monsters from this one are running wild and getting stronger and have escaped out. And so the Locus Solus is not a safe haven anymore, but neither is Filgaia. So the Varuni have no choice but to genocide the local populace and drive them out of their ancestral homes. Free
Just no
Palestine.
choice. Just no choice at all. Their hands are really tied here. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Dean is like, well, if things are this bad for the Varuni, then I'm not going to save the world just for humans. I'm going to find a way to save the Varuni too. I want everyone to live in peace. I'm not just going to turn the status quo upside down. I'm going to eliminate it. The professor says that whatever we do, we have to convince Volsung to cooperate, and he was here looking for something that could convince Volsung that peace was the answer, but he couldn't find anything, so he'll be off. Come along, Carol. Carol's like, actually, Professor, I'd like to go with these people. Like, I'm grateful for what you've done for me, but I'd like to travel with some humans as a human. I hope you don't mind. He minds and runs off. He does not take it well. Carol is like, it's okay. I used to be afraid of being alone, so I relied on the professor a lot, but I'm not alone anymore. Avril suggests that we return to the Mayflower to report to Captain Bartholomew. When we get there, the captain tells us that now that we know both sides of the issue, we're the best equipped to make a fair decision about the fate of Filgaia for both races. Dean says, well, the harder that something is, the more it's worth doing, and I won't give up until I've done it. I kind of skipped things. I like that quote of Dean, but I didn't set it up. He says he's sorry for making them do something so hard, thereabouts. And then Dean says that. But just then, the Mayflower starts shaking violently. The navigator says, "Oh my God, I think that was a darkness tier." What is a darkness tier, you ask? It is a giant soul cannon that requires the souls of a shitload of people, approximately like 12 stasis colonies worth of people. Volsong has used all of the Varunian stasis as ammo for a big laser, and he didn't even hit us. It missed completely. Back in Volsong's throne room, Kardakea is like, man, that was awesome. You killed millions of people at once. I approve. But Faradun and Elvis do not approve. Volsong tells them to be quiet. They are his soldiers, so they should respect the chain of command. The people at the cradle were doomed for death anyways, so he was just helping them along their path. Volsung says that this was a warning to the moderates and anyone who sides with the humans, and the wall between the races is a sacred thing that cannot be destroyed. He tells the four sentinels to prepare for their new orders, as the darkness tier was not only a signal, it was the first step towards this next goal. Back on the Mayflower, all of the non-psychopaths are not happy at all. Bartholomew says that he never expected that Volsung would do this. He thought surely that since he was fighting for Varuni supremacy, he wouldn't just slaughter millions of those Varuni. But apparently not. Volsung then begins a global transmission down to Filgaia, and he says, I am Volsung, the leader of the Varuni radical movement. You have undoubtedly noticed the signal flare I have set off. The next stage of our plan has begun. We will no longer have to live in fear of Filgaia's interference. The TF system has been brought to nearly full power. Humans, make good use of the short time you have remaining. The party's like, how do you turn on the TF system? I thought only Avril can do that. Avril says that the lock that she can unlock is on the power supply. If they found another way to supply power to it, her lock doesn't do shit. And Dean is like, well, then I guess we just got to go beat it up and just break shit. And the party is like, hell yeah. Bartholomew says that the TF system is controlled by 4 towers, all related to their own element, and they have a conduit for that element installed at the top. And if we go to all of the towers, remove those conduits, they'll go offline, and the TF system will go down. He gives us a teleport orb so that we can go anywhere we want to.
Yes.
He says that Asgard's creator lives in Capo Bronco, so he'll drop us off there in the Mayflower. That's right. Old Man Tony, in fact, is a secret mad scientist the whole time. Uh, Slightly out
I
of order.
forgot. I had honestly kind of forgot he existed. And when they brought up his name, I was like, "Oh yeah, him. That was like 40 hours ago. I forgot."
Yeah.
I just remember him implying that he has lots of knowledge that
Mhm.
is relevant to the character's interests and the characters not picking up on it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Um, he's not a Varuni though. If you talk to him after the next cutscenes I'm about to talk about, he explains that when the Johnny Appleseed before Bartholomew was in power, he and the moderates chose a few smart humans to teach about Varuni technology, including Old Man Tony. But the wall between the races was too high, and Tony couldn't climb it. He says that maybe he even helped create it. Uh, he tells us to not underestimate Volsung because he will obviously stop at nothing for his goals, including a double genocide. It's not enough to kill all the humans, he just killed all the Varuni too. Um, he says that he can soup up Asgard for us, which means that he's just a menu for equipping things that on the Asgard, so we can't just equip it conveniently at all times. I hate when games do this and put a menu on an NPC somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, but it's okay because I never use the Asgard because it's really bad.
Luckily, we sidestepped this bad gameplay decision entirely by
Yeah,
just not liking the gameplay.
yes. Um, from here, we get to access any of the towers in any order. Each tower is a really long dungeon with really cool themed puzzles where one of our party earns the power of self-respect. They are also all really hard. Since you can do them in any order, they don't like rubber band scale to match with you. They are tuned to be a couple levels higher than you are when you start, so that they'll be hard when you start and only a little bit easy at the end instead of being trivial at the end. Uh, it sucks and it's real hard. I die a lot. So the first one I want to talk about is the fire tower. This one is Rebecca's dungeon.
Ah.
The puzzles are all jumping puzzles and they're not very hard at all. But the monsters, however, killed me a bunch. There were many times where I would start the battle and they would go first and they would kill me in the first turn because my RNG would put all of my people on the same thing and they would
Mhm.
come over and all three monsters would attack me and we would die. It was real hard.
Around what level are y'all right now?
At the end of this week, I'm like 55, 57, somewhere in there.
Oh,
Like
I'm like
58.
74.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do y'all not have hen badges?
I do now. Because you can steal them from the Soul Niger in this dungeon.
I've had 3 hen badges for a while. I'm trying to remember where I got them.
As we discussed last week, you've been stealing more than I have, so there might have been another place to.
I do
pick some.
steal a lot.
And I never use the stealing mechanic.
Yeah, I started this week because you can't buy healing items in this game, and I was out of healing items, and these bosses were hard. So I looked up where to buy them, and they said steal them. So I interacted with the mechanic of this game finally. Along the way in the dungeon, Rebecca asks Avril what's wrong because even after she got all of her memories back, it seems like she's like thinking about something, holding something back. Avril denies it, and Rebecca is like, "Okay, if you say so." Also, girl to girl, do you like Dean? And Avril says, "I love him. You do too, don't you?" And Rebecca's like, "Yeah." But now that that's out in the open, we can be rivals and be best friends. And then she writes in her journal that she has a big old lesbian crush on Avril.
Yeah, no, this scene felt like the game was fucking with me specifically after last week. After
Mhm.
last week, when I'm like, yeah, no, this game it's not gonna give me anything. I'm gonna give up hope completely. And then I get a scene that the first half of it is like fucking, oh, well, we're gonna be rivals over his affection. We're best friends. We're gal pals. And then Rebecca writes in her journal and just says, "I want to be with her forever. She's important to me as Dean is." And I'm like, where was this? Where was this game? I want to shake the writers.
So, a ways later into the dungeon, Rebecca drops her journal, and Avril picks it up for
Oh
her.
God, this bit.
Rebecca is embarrassed because it's filled with poetry, and Avril's like, "No, poetry is cool. If you're going to be embarrassed about it, let me feel silly too. Write my poem in there. My poem is, thanks to you, I realized that too. Together is better than one alone. I wish you could realize it too." And Rebecca's like, "Oh my God, is she flirting?" I'm definitely writing this one down. I'll never lose it or anything. It's super important to me. And then
I just
finally,
want to
Go ahead.
remind you, this is a callback to the start of the game with a gag about her
Mhm.
diary. And if you remember, when Dean found it, he opened up to a poem about maidens' bosoms.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When she gets to the top, she finally decides that she's going to confess to Dean, and it goes poorly. She tells them that she's been keeping a travel diary, and he's like, "Awesome, we can read it together when we're done." And she's like, "No, you can't ever look inside." And then she thinks to herself, she's like, "Yeah, because then he would see how I feel about him. But actually, maybe I should let him read it so that he'll know how I feel about him without me having to say anything." And she was like,
She specifically says that all she's been writing about is her feelings for Dean, and I'm like, yeah,
"That
That's
tracks."
that's
you
true.
have not, you've literally not written about anything else.
Your first entry was like, "I'm going to write a travel journey." Your second intro was like, "Why won't he like me?"
I had to
um,
think about after this what I really felt about Dean and how I really wanted his attention. And I'm like, oh my God. And then that
uh,
happened 15 more times.
I'm assuming if you like put on the glasses that make you see the world as a real world, like the way the characters see it, Dean is way hotter. It's
probably.
the only explanation
That's
for
truly the
how
only
these girls
explanation.
behave.
She's like, "Hey Dean, actually, about my diary." He's like, "Don't worry, I won't read it. Even if you torture me, there's nothing you can do that can make me read that diary." And she goes, "Well, shit." At the top of the tower, Persephone is waiting on her. Persephone says that since Nightburn is dead, she has no reason to keep any humans alive. And Dean is like, "Oh, so you found his body?" And she's like, "I ain't found shit, but I'm going to give up. I can't let you interfere with our plans any longer." And we have a boss fight with her. It's really hard. I actually gave up and did all of the other three towers before coming back here to do this one. It was really, really hard. She has an instant kill move. All four of them have an instant kill move, but hers is not actually an instant kill move. It is a move that does 9,000 damage flat, ignoring all bonuses, which means you can't survive it. But it's also not an insta kill move, so lifesavers and holy grails don't defend against it. So you just die if she uses it on you. Um, she also hits for about half of my character's health on a regular turn, and she's also super fast. So half the time she starts charging up her insta kill move, and maybe one of my people has time to leave. If that, 9 times out of 10, she charges it, and then she has the very next turn where she gets to do it and kill somebody. She also then has a move that heals for 5,000 damage. It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
After the fight, Persephone is like, "Why do you continue to risk your lives so hopelessly? Even if you defeat me, there's no way you can defeat Volsung. He's the literal devil." Rebecca is like, "Nothing's impossible. As someone special to me likes to say, you can do anything as long as you don't give up." Persephone is like, "Well then prove it," and fights Rebecca one-on-one. All four towers have a one-on-one fight, and they are all real hard. The cheese strat is to win a war of attrition by equipping your party member with the healer medium, which will get you an emergency turn if your health falls into the red, so then you can heal up and then do measly healer damage to them and eventually win. Uh, After Rebecca defeats her, Persephone is like, "Well, how could I lose to a brat like you?" Rebecca says, You can't beat me if you can't even be honest with yourself. I know how you feel. It can be hard to express your feelings to someone you love, but if you don't say anything, they'll never know. And besides, there's no proof that he's dead, is there? If you keep running away from him like that, you'll never find him. Go look for him. Varuni or not, he won't reject you.
All right, so Sam's dying. So he's having trouble reading the notes in a way that won't be absolute hell to edit. So I have graciously offered to read them for him. You can all applaud how nice and thoughtful I am.
Yes, and you can read all of the jokes that as I get to them, realize they're dumb jokes, and I skip over them, and you can read them verbatim and make fun of me.
Okay. So after the battle, Rebecca says, we got to the part where Rebecca says to go after Nightburn, and Persephone is touched. She explains that Nightburn and her sister were lovers, but her sister was rejected by Filgaia, and after she died, Nightburn lost control and hated Filgaia and all of humanity, blaming them for her death. She says she should have talked to Nightburn sooner. Rebecca says, "It's not too late, right?" Persephone says, "I suppose not. I won't give up either, Rebecca. I'll never give up. I'll find Nightburn." We nab the conduit and head to the other towers. They're about Carol, Chuck, and Greg, who we don't really care that much about, so I'll just be brief. Okay, good, because I was like, oh man, if we go into that much detail about the other towers, this is going to be rough.
No, the other towers are not that interesting.
They're really not.
Rebecca is like the female lead of the game, so her development is plot development. The other people are B parts.
Yeah. Carol's journey involves finding out that she was only trying hard to be good at science to not get in the professor's way, and felt like she was holding him back. Dean tells her to look forward to the futures, don't run from the past, don't be afraid to let people take care of you, so you can know how to take care of others. She asks Dean if he can take care of her, to be her big brother, and he says, of course. Her dungeon involves a lot of block sliding and ice freezing. Her sentinel is Elvis, where Carol tells him that she wants to leave and travel with Dean. Elvis doesn't like this, so he fights us. After the fight, he's like, okay, Dean, if you're going to take Carol from me, fight me one-on-one. But Carol steps in and says she'll fight her own fights. Elvis is probably
I was gonna say, it should also be noted, it isn't just like, oh, they want to travel together, but there's something about they specifically want to make him really angry. And so they're like, we need to word this as Carol wants to go out on a date with Dean, and he'll get upset because he wants to protect his precious darling daughter.
Yes, and also Carol doesn't tell everyone that she's going to play this card. So she's like, I want your permission to go out with Dean, and everyone's like, excuse me? But yeah, Elvis is probably the easiest fight, but Carol is the weakest character. So Sam had to use spell items to even damage him. It took a while.
Yeah, her regular attack literally said no effect, not because he has anything that protects it. She just couldn't go over his damage threshold. It was rough.
See, I thought ahead, and I went in and I completely redid her dragon fossil, whatever it is, shit, to make her a physical attacker. She still was weak, and it still took a while, but yeah. After the fight, Carol thanks him for taking care of her like a daughter, and she calls him Dad. It's cute. At Chuck's tower, Chuck just wishy-washies over Lucille. Dean tells him to protect people. I barely cared. I didn't say Sam barely cared there because it is true that I barely cared either. His dungeon has a lot of puzzles where you have to step on tiles in the right order. It's fun. It is actually fun. I was like, oh, this looks like it's going to be annoying, but it was fun figuring it out.
Yeah, the harder one, where you have to like actually like jump over other tiles and go in a crazy order, was really fun to figure out.
It wasn't fun that I fucked it up a few times because of the controls.
Yes. As a side note about the controls, I'm playing on the Steam Deck and I have it on fast forward, and the Steam Deck's fast forward fluctuates from 2 to 3 times faster. And I didn't turn it off for any of these jumping puzzles. I just was like, I'll figure out how to do it at double speed. It's fine.
Why didn't you just turn it off? You can
That's
turn
what
it
you
back on
know.
whenever you want.
Yeah, but it just it wasn't ever. There was one time I almost did it in, I think Greg's, the one with the light bridges. There's that one that's blinking the wrong way, so you have to like jump onto it early so that you can get off of it early. That one I almost turned to normal, because no, I think I ended up having to turn that one to normal, but the rest of them it was fine. I just did it super fast.
Anyway,
You
Chuck's fight
ridiculous
is
man.
yes. Chuck's fight is with Faradun, who Chuck reminds that the TF system will kill Lucille too. Faradun doesn't care. Then we fight him. Then Chuck fights him. Turns out Faradun does care and vows to protect Lucille. Onward!
Oh, okay. I'll save this for memorable moments. Never mind. Continue.
The last tower is Greg Tower. His journey is about realizing that revenge can't be the thing that drives him, and living for tomorrow should be his driving factor. But if he gets the chance to kill Kartikeya, that should be fun. His dungeon involves a lot of multi-room puzzles with wind turbines and switches, and it's pretty decent. His boss is Kartikeya. Kartikeya is like, I finally get to kill you. And Greg is like, well, I did say that I would get my revenge if it was convenient, so here goes. And we have a boss fight. Kartikeya's boss arena is annoying, as there's not a lot of options to get 2 squares away from his instant death technique. Can I admit something? It did not occur to me to try and get away from the instant death attacks until like the third one. I would just guard and be like, I hope it works this time. So I'm not always smart. And of course,
None
after
of
his
us
fight,
are.
Kartikeya is like, you pussy, you don't have the guts to fight me one-on-one. So Greg fights him one-on-one, and it sucks. In every single other fight, the Sentinel doesn't use their insta-kill attack in the one-on-one fight because that would be stupid and way too punishing. But not Kartikeya, he charges up, and you have to get away in this shitty arena that's too small. On top of that, Greg sucks, and Healer Greg sucks worse. I know he has so little HP, or MP. I ran out of MP for him and had to use, like, the critical heal that uses force points, and also had to use healing items. It was awful. Anyway, Sam says I had to use Earth spell items, which is Kartikeya's weakness, to even deal damage at all, and it was chip damage. So I had to survive a super long fight and barely hurt him each round. It blows. After the fight, Kartikeya is freaking out, thinking he's about to die, but Greg's gun is out of ammo. And he tells Kartikeya to leave, and he'll get his revenge later. But Kartikeya isn't like the other Sentinels. He's not good on the inside. He doesn't want this. So he shoots himself with a shotgun in the stomach, so Greg's life has no meaning since he can't get revenge. Greg is like, life's not about revenge, it's about the power of friendship. Kartikeya is like, fuck, and dies. The filmmaking here is so weird, and it's so weird how
So
he has
weird.
this giant, perfectly circular hole in his torso, and there's no blood or guts or anything. And I understand why there can't be blood or guts. This is this game is not rated M for mature, but it's so weird.
There was a movie I watched when I was very young, and I haven't seen it in a long time. But it was like a comedy martial arts movie, and there was
It's
a
Kung
joke.
Pao. It's Kung
Yeah,
Pao.
Kung Pao and Fist, and they hit a character, and a perfectly circular section of their torso just pops out. It looks exactly like that.
Nice.
Oh god.
After we leave the tower, we see the main TF system complex uncloak in the middle of the ocean, and a large complex lowers from the heavens to rest atop the tower. Dean calls the captain because apparently we have long distance communications. I guess the teleport orb is also a phone.
Yeah.
You can also do FaceTime on it.
Or maybe Asgard, since he waited till we got out of the tower, but I don't know.
Oh, maybe Asgard. That would make sense if you could do a call from Asgard.
Mhm.
Anyway, the captain says, Dean, this is the point of no return in this RPG. Go and do side quests and have heart-to-hearts with your comrades before we go to the tower. Dean says, okay, and we go to Capo Bronco. In Capo Bronco, Dean leaves Invincible, now repaired with tape, on the mountain where he met Avril. That was where he found his golem bolt, and where he met Avril, and now it's where he went before leaving to save the world. Avril is like, that's the arm you had when we met, right? Dean is like, actually, it's not an arm, it's a shovel. It can hit things and dig up things. It's super versatile. Avril's like, wow, the arms I gave you can't dig up anything. This one must be better than it. It's cute. She says that she made Dean's arms, as well as the TF system, back when she was the Ice Queen, which is why she has to fix this. She says that disabling the TF system will only prevent the destruction of humanity and not actually solve the problem of solving racism. Dean is like, it's cool. We'll save the world so that we can save the people after. Avril asks if they can just talk, and Avril is like, I'll give you some privacy. And Avril's like, no, I mean literally, just talk. Let's just relax and pause for a second. It's been a shit couple of months. Rebecca says that after they achieve world peace, they'd have time like this every day. But Avril's face clouds over, and Rebecca realizes there must be a catch to all this that Avril is hiding, but she isn't going to pry. Rebecca excuses herself to go talk to her family and leaves Dean and Avril alone. Dean is like, man, she's so weird. She's always in other people's business. Avril says, and I quote, she certainly is cute, isn't she? If I was a boy, I wouldn't be able to leave her alone. And here it says, gay. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty gay.
Yeah, it's pretty gay.
Avril asks Dean if he remembers that day they met, and Dean says, yeah, how could I forget? I've wanted to ask, since you have your memory back, about the tear you shed when you saw me. Avril says, normally, if my sins are ever forgiven, then perhaps I can tell you. Dean says, how long will that take? She says, again, normally, it could take forever. She doesn't know. And Dean says he'll do something about that. He'll do anything for her. She says, then can you just give me a hug? He says, of course. She then says to herself that shovels aren't good for digging holes. They're good for filling them too. And he has filled the hole in her heart. Meanwhile, Rebecca is not seeing her family. She's angrily pacing back and forth, waiting for Dean and Avril to get back. And I like the filmmaking here, how it's focused on Carol just like looking back and forth as Rebecca paces in front of the camera. It's cute.
It's very good.
When they show up, she's like, oh, I wasn't waiting long. I just got back from saying my goodbyes. And Chuck is like, no, you didn't. And then Carol pulls him to the side to make him shut up. Greg asks if we're ready, and Dean says he was born ready. And now they must head to the Central TF System Tower, which they will next week.
Thank you, Bernard.
Yes.
So, yeah, now we will listen to some more of this fantastic soundtrack and then talk about our memorable moments.
There was lots of good music this week, which we had heard in passing before, because each Sentinel has their appearance track and their battle track. And we'd heard the battle tracks before when we got owned by them, but now we get to hear them
for more than 15 seconds.
Yeah, we get to actually hear them in an actual battle that we get to win, which is fun. I really like Elvis's. That's one of the tracks I'm going to put in this episode.
Nice.
Excellent choice. We'll talk about my memorable moment. I'll start with got really glossed over. I feel like I'm the person on this podcast that's the most warm on. Oh no, I'm forgetting his name. I was about to say I like him, and I can't remember his name now. Oh,
Greg?
Chuck. Yes, I'm the most warm of the three of us on Chuck. I like him. I think he has a fun design. I think he's been shafted with a really awful plot line. But he is a character I do like.
Mm-hmm.
But wow, is his tower easily the worst, at least in story content, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Which is partially due to the fact that Faradun sucks. He sucks so much because there. I really feel like there is an art to writing a sympathetic, like complex villain who's like, oh, they're like, in this case, it feels like they're going for this character is an antagonist and appears to be a villain, but actually it turns out they've been a good person this whole time. And it's like, I feel like especially with Faradun, they've completely whiffed it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the game is trying to be like, no, he's a really good guy. He's really swell. He has a code of honor. And look, he's nice to the maid and he likes the Lady Diane. And I'm like, okay, he's also complicit with all of the atrocities.
Yeah.
He's like the most complicit out of any of the Sentinels.
No,
except
but
for the bad one.
But he explains he was just following orders.
He was just following
That
orders.
makes it okay.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Like, I could see potentially being like having conflicting feelings growing up in a world of propaganda that humans are all poison and killing everybody. I could see him having difficulty with that and then him coming around to it via Lucille, etc., etc. But he's still here in the tower to fight you after Volsung committed his first of 2 genocides.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little past the point of just following orders at this point.
Yeah, you'd kind of think that Faradun and Persephone and Elvis, well, not Elvis because we fight him for stupid reasons. You'd think Persephone and Faradun would be like, yeah, just take the thing, just go ahead and fuck up this tower, and don't tell Volsung that I let you.
Yeah. There was a point in the synopsis where something was said along the lines of like, oh, well, they're all except for that one guy, they're all really, they're good people at heart, or there's like, they're not actually bad guys. It turned like they do a heel to face turn, but they don't really. I wouldn't say they do. Faradun, it feels like he's operating in some kind of weird double think of like, yes, I am a radical. I am working directly under King of Genocide, who does all the atrocities and wants to kill humans for no reason. Well, not for no reason, but honestly, frequently it does seem like for no reason. And also his own people. But he's all that. And then he's also like, oh, but also I'm very nice to humans in my personal life, and that makes me a good one. And it's like, no, it doesn't, man. You're not a good. That you can't do that. You can't act like what you do. Like you could do these side things, and that makes up for everything else.
And also
infuriating.
Oh, they point out they try to sell him being good by he has a romantic-ish relationship with his employee.
Yeah.
who is not really an employee so much as a slave.
Literal slave.
So that's not great.
Also, he and Chuck, their fight is specifically like a word as we're gonna fight over her. I was really upset because the lead up to it felt like Chuck was being like, hey, I have accepted that she rejected me and she doesn't want to be with me, and I'm over that. But I care about her, and you're treating her like shit. You're literally working for a guy who, if what he wants to happen happens, she will die, and you know that. And so, like, I don't feel like you have a right to like be that person for her. So I'm gonna kick your fucking ass. And I'm like, oh, hey, that's good. And then he's like, we'll fight over her. The winner gets her. And I'm like, no, stop it.
Yeah, this game's writing is not perfect.
It's not. Its narrative design, like how they write everything, continues to blow my mind. Like the callbacks to the very beginning of the game, the way that there have been like subtle things, and the walk-in talks are freaking brilliant, and no game ever does that, and every game should. But the bit-to-bit writing is absolutely not great. Which
and
makes,
then also, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, which makes me think the problem might lie with Xseed and not with Xseed is the localization house.
Localization,
It might lie with Xseed more than it does with MediaVision.
Possibly, but at the same time, like the game we're playing is the localization. It's all we can really comment on and talk about. We're not, we're playing Ace Attorney. We're not playing Gyakuten Saibon.
Yeah.
Sort of situation. I was just gonna say also, for I guess a memorable moment question mark of this week, we keep referencing, because it's, especially when we are recording this podcast, it is unavoidable to compare the human, oh god, I'm forgetting what they're called now. It starts with a V. The rich nobles from space. It's hard not to compare the Varuni. It's hard not to compare their conflict to Israel-Palestine. It's very hard not to. It's, of course, I'm sure, at least maybe partially based on that. It's probably also just based on a lot of settler colonialism throughout history. I mean, it's a game stylized out of the American West. There's probably at least some Wild West stuff going on with that. Drawing on the Europeans and the indigenous people of the Americas. But I really appreciate how some of it's done. It really feels like, oh, hey, they are pointing directly to how settler colonialism works and how it's fucked up, and the systems it creates that can create the illusion of there being some way out of a caste system when there actually isn't any. And that's all great. And then it's like, yeah, but the Varuni have it really hard too. Like, look at the consequences of their own actions that are killing them. Isn't that really bad? Don't they deserve some love too? And I go, no. Like, I'm not saying genocide them back. I'm saying these people have set up a situation where the choice is between them or all other living things on the planet. And at the end of the day, if we do get to that choice, it shouldn't be that difficult to choose one of them. I don't know.
Obviously, the choice is double genocide. Just kill everybody.
Yes, the Kartikeya strategy.
Speaking of Volsung committing a double genocide, when he's talking with the Sentinels about the Darkness tier, and Faradun and Elvis are like, dude, what the hell? He's like, I promise. They felt not an instant's worth of pain. But in the FMV of it firing, all the people were woken from stasis and like clawing, trying to get out, while their eyes burned with blue fire, screaming and convulsing in pain.
Yeah.
I think Volsung might be a liar and a bad guy. Maybe so.
I hope we get to kick his ass.
I hope so.
It would be nice.
Another part that I really loved this week is when you first get Asgard, Dean is obviously losing his bonkers that he gets a giant robot, and then Chuck is also losing his bonkers. He was like, yeah, I became a golem hunter because I wanted to see cool robots. This is awesome. And the girls are like, boys, Greg, thank you so much for not losing your bonkers over this robot. And then he whispers to himself, I'm totally losing my bonkers over this robot.
It's too bad that the robot they're all doing this over sucks.
It sucks so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this week. I think these are probably the best dungeons we've had, and I really had to engage with the battles, like not just for the bosses, like normal, but like my regular setup. Like I've been having to use my healer because I can't just kill everything in 2 or 3 turns, and I've been going to steal because that's the only way to get healing items in this game, and like caring about my positioning and like using jump. And I don't have still don't have anybody with the hex specific stuff, because that feels like one step beyond status effects, and we know that I don't use status effects in games, so I'm definitely not going to get the guy that's like, oh, I can make it where no one can walk on this hex, and I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've been really digging in to the battle. I tried my first time against Persephone. I tried probably like 2 hours last night, and then like another hour this morning, trying to just figure it out. But I was not properly equipped. I needed about 10 levels. But now I have hin badges, so I'm gonna get a shitload of experience from here on out.
Cool.
What about you, Bernard? Was there any particular memorable moment we haven't brought up yet?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy the thing where like, here's some cool dungeons that you can do in any order,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all like, related to one of the side party members. Like, that's a fun concept. I enjoy that. And you get a bunch of mini bosses to fight, but it also leaves it kind of light on like rich stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of the 4 towers were kind of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
like, I don't need a bunch of character development for Chuck and Greg and Carol. They've like, Chuck and Greg have already had their arcs. Well, Chuck didn't really have an arc. Greg had his arc. Carol, I guess, got to have some development, but I don't care about her too much. I enjoy her when she's doing something silly in a cutscene, but I don't care about her.
Yeah.
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 But that will do it for the week. If you like what you heard, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations help us cover the cost of running the show and making it better and better. If you set up a recurring monthly donation, you also get some additional benefits. If you donate $1 more a month, you get access to our bonus feed, where this week we are finally continuing playing Tales of Destiny. And according to Bernard, stuff actually happens this week, and he writes the notes. So I believe him, unlike when I said something is happening this week, and it turned out to be about 6 lines in one cutscene is all that happened in the last episode. But
I have actually finished the section we're playing this week. I've almost finished writing my notes for it. Stuff does happen. It's still boring.
yeah, and we were hoping we would be close, but we're basically like halfway through the game. So
I'm so ready to be done with this game. I'm hoping the second, because we're very clearly like at the half break.
Mhm.
I'm hoping the second half will be more interesting.
Mm-hmm. I want a lot of people talk really highly about this game and this remake in particular. So I wonder if the second half is so good that they put up with the boring first half, and they're not doing a podcast every week where they have to talk about nothing happening for an hour and a half, and so it probably is less annoying then. But yeah, come and check out tomorrow's episode that you'll hear on later, and yeah, check us out. You also will get access to our polls to decide what game we play next on the main feed. Right now, we have a 16 games enter, 2 games leave tournament going on, and this week was a major upset. Like an insane one. As we mentioned last week, it was really looking like it was going to be Paper Mario and Final Fantasy X-2, because they had a sizable lead against everything else. There were a bunch tied for third, but first and second were obvious. People have come through and voted them to oblivion, and so now Wild Arms 1 and Breath of Fire 4 are up as potentially the winners. So,
but it could all change again. It's crazy in there.
Yeah. So
who knows what could happen?
If you haven't gotten your votes in, definitely get your votes in. And every vote is a swing vote when you can tank things with 16 points. So yeah, go in.
It's almost like this. It's almost like the ranked choice voting system that we specifically implemented is not a good one.
Yes. There's a
because
reason
it leads to these absolutely bizarre, wild upsets constantly.
Yeah. I looked up how we were supposed to have done it, and if we would have done it that way. I think these would only be like, I think they're in like third and fourth right now, so they're still up there. So it's not like we're being super unfair, but I like this being insane. And we told you from the beginning we were going to pick the insane one, so insane poll it is. So yeah, if
Insane in the membrane.
yes, you can also donate $5 or more a month, and we'll shout out your name at the end of every episode, like this. Shouts to Cerebral Wind, It's Claire Time, Frost Terror, Dragon Slayer 19, Floris, Kaldron, Freddy Rodriguez, Aaron524, and JFro Prime. And then finally, if you love us so much you want to donate $20 or more a month, you also get to make me say a sentence of your choosing, either to plug something or just to make me say something silly. So shoutouts to El Tantavi, who wants you to check out critical-distance.com, an aggregator for games criticism and journalism. Shoutouts to Vimk, who says, be like Sam, start playing Legend of Legaia. It's really, really good. I have not played it very long, but it's pretty. So there's
Make
that.
it your New Year's resolution to play Legend of Legaia.
That's the one. And then finally, shoutouts to Carr, who's a dentist, so he isn't plugging a website, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time right before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
And I'm Trish.
Toodaloo, folks.
Bye.